with positive vibes and nothing but joy in her smile. To Bridget Calvert, her niece Kylan Schulte was a ray of light.
Her having such a beautiful soul, to see it complemented with someone like Crystal, that they could really enjoy life and do it together.
Kylan and her wife, Crystal Turner, got married 4 months ago, loved living van life, and called the outdoors around Moab home. Many people knew the couple around town, which is why when the two were no-call, no-shows, it was clear something was wrong. The family, all out of state, say police searched, but it wasn't until an acquaintance drove out to the South Mesa area and the LaSalle Mountains herself that they discovered the horrifying news.
She was on the phone with my brother when she pulled up to the car. She looks at the site and sees a body and tells my brother that he sent a text that said it's Kylan and Crystal.
The Grand County Sheriff's Office confirmed the two women were shot and killed, they believe, by someone else.
The evidence that we've gathered at this time, that's what it's led us to believe was an isolated incident.
That's all they can say for now. Bridget explained how friends told them the couple mentioned a man creeping them out near their campsite.
Friends Saturday that they met up with, they said they were going to go move. They were going to go pack up and move their campsite. That it was like he was still creeping them out.
The family is hoping someone can help them find answers.
What is very uncomforting is that there 100% is a murderer on the loose.
A murderer who took 2 lives away, but the family says will never put out the light, the love of Kylan and Crystal.
We're going to let their love light shine, that they had the most beautiful love, and that light is not stopping.
She's right. There's a murderer on the loose. I mean, no one's been arrested. No one's been charged. This happened August 18th. Let's bring in tonight's guest. Joining me in Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen, and in New Haven, Connecticut, retired FBI special agent and senior lecturer at the University of New Haven, Kenneth Gray. Great to have you both back on the show. We've got some new details that I want to share with you that have been revealed from search warrants. Let's take a look at some of these details. The campsite near the LaSalle Loop Road, there was a blue Kia Sorento, a single camp tent, a makeshift rabbit shelter, and normal amenities for a long-term camping. The bodies of Crystal and Kylan were in a nearby creek. Both women were undressed from the waist down. One of the females had on a bra that was raised to expose her breasts. The second female was dressed in only a tank top. Multiple gunshot wounds on both bodies located on the backs, sides, and/or chests of the victim. Some new details being revealed. Jason Jensen, I'll begin with you. Let's start with the fact that they're found in a nearby creek. How does that impact the investigation, the gathering of evidence, etc.?
Well, it makes you wonder if the reason why the bodies were in a creek was to somehow wash away DNA or something like that. So it really depends on how large of a creek it really was, if it was sufficient enough as a means to trying to destroy the evidence of this perpetrator. But given the fact that it sounds like these two women were sexually assaulted, I would hope that there's ample DNA to collect and figure out who this guy is.
Yeah, Kenneth Gray, that's the other part of this, right? Both women undressed from the waist down, the bra raised on one of the women. Does that get us close to trying to figure out a potential motive in all of this? Could this be done to throw investigators off the track? What are your thoughts?
So I would first approach this from the simplest point of view that it looks like this is a crime motivated by, a sex crime. I'd like to know whether or not the local authorities there collected up any DNA evidence. That would make all the difference in the world if they do have DNA evidence taken from the both ladies. Or the Bureau also has devices called MVACs, which can pull DNA off of things like rocks, like clothing, like other hard objects. Something that previously was unavailable to get DNA from things that you would think there would be no DNA left behind. So if there was DNA that was left on some of the rocks near the ladies, it may be possible to still pull DNA off of that, despite the fact that they're in the water.
Multiple gunshot wounds on both bodies, located on the back, sides, and/or chests of the victims. Jason Jensen, anything you're gleaning from that at this point, or other questions that you have related to that?
Well, it clearly looks like the guy was going out of his way to make sure that he killed them, that they wouldn't be able to identify him or testify against him. So he's shooting them, and they're fighting, turning around, trying to avoid being killed, and obviously didn't work out that way.
I've got more from the search warrants. Investigators were informed that Kylan had mentioned to her friends that if something happened to them, that they were murdered. Kylan had continued by saying there was a creepy man around their camp and they had been intimidated by him. Kylan and Crystal were reported to be last seen at Woody's Tavern, and security footage shows them leaving the bar August 13th at 10:30 p.m. As we say, they're living at this campsite, living what the relatives said as the van life. Kenneth Gray, you've got the creepy man. How do you track down this creepy man? Sounds like, obviously, suspect number one would be the creepy man, but how are we going to find this creepy man?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I think that despite the fact that this is out in a rural area, there are still places that he may have gone into. So you would start looking in the area for things like gas stations, like restaurants, and start trying to develop potential suspects by checking into those places. I would also not discount the fact that there may be video in that area. There could be video at nearby gas stations. There could be video at nearby bus stations. There could be a potential to get a visual on this person. But first off, you need to interview people in the area, conduct what we normally would call a neighborhood. This is a pretty rural neighborhood, but conducting a neighborhood, you talk to all possible people in the area to see if they know anything about this particular crime. If they were so creeped out by this creepy man, other people may have seen someone like that and would recognize the description.
I've got some more details. Again, this is all from the search warrant, newly revealed. A second vehicle, a gray 1987 Ford Econoline van, had been left in the parking lot of the McDonald's located at the intersection of Cane Creek Boulevard. Now, this is the van. Talk about living the van life. This is that van. The van was registered to both of the victims. There was one black journal with newspaper clippings, miscellaneous mail, pay stubs, a Bible, miscellaneous notes with handwritten information. Now, some other information coming forward now. We've got an electronic scale with residue which tested positive for marijuana, a glass pipe with a green leafy residue, small plastic container with green leafy residue, 10 blue pills identified as clonazepam, 13 white pills identified as ibuprofen, 9 capsules identified as amoxicillin, and 1.5 pink pills identified as prednisone. But I wanted to show you something else that came out of the search warrant, which was a storage unit, which was shared by both victims and the father of one of the victims. Okay, so they're sharing this storage unit. And in there, 5 marijuana paraphernalia items, 1 methamphetamine paraphernalia item, 4 cocaine paraphernalia items, 2 bags of white substance consistent with cocaine, 2 tablets, 6 smartphones. All right, Kenneth Gray, I'll start with you. So looking at the drug aspect of this, and obviously, it could be personal use. I don't know. But you've got a scale. What more do you want to know? What else would you look into based upon things that were found here, both in that van and in the storage unit?
I would talk to friends, relatives to see whether or not either one of these ladies were engaged in any type of sales of narcotics, any type of sales of marijuana. The scale is something of interest there. The scale tends to imply that one or both were involved with trying to sell drugs on the side. And, one was working at that McDonald's where the van was found. I'd like to know whether or not the van was still working. Maybe the reason why it was still parked at the McDonald's was maybe it wasn't functional at the time.
Jason Jensen, there's a lot of information revealed in all these warrants, and obviously investigators are following every lead they can. Where do you think the lead comes from that leads to a suspect here? Is it going to be from something forensically, something that was left, something that was found, or do you think it's going to come from a person who knows something?
I think the strongest likelihood of leading to a suspect would be from the DNA testing. Ken hit the nail when he said about the MVAC. My friend, and I'm from Utah, I'm very familiar with MOAB. One of the things that my friend Francine Bartle has developed using the MVAC is the Bartle method, which she's used to actually retrieve DNA off of the spent shell casings at a gang shooting. So it's very possible somebody like her could use the MVAC and extract DNA from the shell casing. So if they can do that on a gang shooting, they can do that here.
All right, we're going to continue to track this case and all the developments as they come.